Now, let's get into the ricketics of things. I have someone that I have a lot of respect for. He has been my attorney. He has worked for free. He has never asked me for a cent. And even if he had asked me for a cent, well, that would have been another story because I ain't got nothing. I had nothing, right? Mr. Roysdale Forde, good evening to you, the Honorable MP.
Hi, Mark. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on your show. I hope we have good connections tonight.
Hey, man, I'm feeling the vibes. We do have good connections and really nice to see you. Let's begin with, man, how have you been? I know the COVID-19 pandemic, it's horrible. As that young man, the Soca Monarch, was singing about the stadium and the pandemic and so forth. How is that affecting you and your family and your co-workers?
Well, it is affecting us in a very serious way. It has altered the way in which we work. My office is working on restricted hours. The appointments is the main way in which we operate. During the day, courts are functioning almost exclusively virtual. My children, the schooling has been affected. So most of the schooling is currently now virtual. There are a few classes which they would attend in person. So we can't really go out as much. We have to be responsible and protect ourselves and protect other members of the public also.
All right, that's a timely message, protect ourselves and members of the public and so forth. Virtual courtrooms, how is that affecting the backlog of the court system, of especially those who are locked away in prisons?
Well, the court system is currently functioning in terms of criminal trials. It is being used, the virtual courtrooms are being used to expedite hearings and to allow persons who are currently incarcerated to have trials heard. I personally have some concerns in relation to the use of virtual courts for civil proceedings where they would have trials. I believe that it is not as efficient or effective because you're not present, you don't exactly see what is happening when a witness is giving evidence. But it is very useful in terms of the court hearing applications where persons don't necessarily have to testify. So the court system is functioning. I believe the virtual element of it has added value to the court system as a whole.
All right, added value indeed, and a lot of prisoners they just need timely early trial. Let's touch on this here. Speaking of the court system, what is your take on this recent judgment, Mr. Forde?
Well, Mark, I learned of it just a few days ago, as any other member of the public. I believe it is a timely reminder for the irresponsible statements that members of the PPP have been saying over and over again about members of the APNU AFC. I believe, having read what has been published about the matter, there was an inordinate delay in filing a defense. I believe the excuses advanced by the Attorney General are worthless. It doesn't really make any sense. 1 year would have expired from the time the defense would have been due to the time that the court would have granted judgment. I believe that Ms. Ferguson was defamed, and it is a just outcome of those court proceedings.
All right, a just outcome. I suppose that they are going to appeal it, right? They're not just going to let it go like that.
They're going to appeal it, or they're going to make some effort to have it set aside to the High Court.
All right, let's move on to another case. I believe your colleague, Member of Parliament, Ganesh Mahipal, his unjust dismissal. What's happening with that, sir?
Well, yesterday, that came up before the Public Service Appellate Tribunal. That was the first hearing, the preliminary hearing, in which the court has to make an assessment as to whether Mr. Mahipal have a case of any substance. The panel met, the Public Service Appellate Tribunal, the chairman and the other two members met, and it was a very short but efficient hearing. The panel concluded that Mr. Mahipal has a case of merit, and it is fixed for hearing on the 19th of April before the Public Service Appellate Tribunal.
All right, glad we're pleased about that update, and we hope that he does get justice. Let's move over now, Mr. Forde, to the hot story, the really, really hot story, the 2020 Human Rights Report. And this is the current Secretary of State, Anthony Bilkin. In that report, several things are pretty obvious. But one of them that stands out the most, in my opinion, that is that Irfaan Ally is being described as installed president. What is your take on that?
I don't believe that the United States would use that word lightly. I don't believe they would use it as a matter of an accident. I believe the United States is forming a conclusion, communicating a conclusion on the legitimacy of the government. We have been saying that Mr. Ally and the PPP would have been installed into office on the basis of fraudulent votes and other irregularities. Mark, you know that the PPP and Mr. Ally would have refused to meet with members of the opposition because we would have been calling them installed and illegitimate. So I don't know if Mr. Ally will now take the irrational position that he will no longer meet with the representatives of the United States or no longer embrace them in terms of having any bilateral relationships with the United States. But I believe the statement in the report recognizes what we've been saying for the past 8 or 9 months.
Exactly, and you guys feel vindicated that, look, hey, they were upset. Ally and his crew were upset of being described as installed government, which in fact that's what they are. But here in the U.S. State Department report, it's saying just that. They're installed.
Exactly.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I'm saying exactly. I'm agreeing with you.
Yep. And were you surprised that they've mentioned the Christopher Jones arrest, persecution of Christopher Jones?
No, I'm not surprised, Mark. What I'm surprised that many of the other cases of persecution, of high-handed governmental action against members of the opposition and against members of the public were not sufficiently highlighted in the report. But I'm not surprised that the United States would single out that particular matter. Mark, if you recall that evening, because I was present, the court granted an order to restrain the police from entering Mr. Jones' home. I was present there. I think it is recorded on video somewhere. The police literally disregarded that order, literally stepped and stamped on it and entered Mr. Jones' home. So I'm not surprised that that would have been somehow featured in a report of this nature.
All right, we're not surprised at all.
That incident, Mark, if you recall, was not long after the PPP would have assumed office illegitimately.
Yeah. And so there hasn't been a meeting with senior members of the opposition and this installed regime. There has not been a meeting as yet.
No, there have been no meeting, Mark.
And that is because Irfaan Ally wants what? He wants you guys to stop describing them as installed, as you've said earlier. Is that what's holding this meeting back?
Yes, he wants us to recognize him as a legitimate president of Guyana, that the PPP won the elections legitimately. We're not going to do that because first, it is not true. Secondly, we currently have petitions in court which deal with the very issue of his legitimacy. He's in office. We recognize as a matter of logic that he's in office. So we are prepared to meet with him as the office holder, as the occupier of the office of the presidency of Guyana.
And that's what you guys are prepared to meet with him under those circumstances, as the occupier of that particular office. Well said. Good with that. Speaking of that office, speaking of court matters and so forth, give us a quick rundown, because people are excited they're anxious about this appeal. I believe is Order 99, is it? Talk to our people about that. Talk to the listeners about that. And when is that case? April 7th, I believe?
Well, there are two appeals. Well, let me back up. There are two election petitions.
Yeah.
The first one was dismissed by the Chief Justice, and we have filed an appeal in relation to that appeal, in relation to that petition. We received notification a few days or a few weeks ago, a little over a week ago, from the Court of Appeal informing us that they're about to settle the record, which is an indication of the fact that the appeal process is proceeding, and I'm quite happy about that. It shows that the Court of Appeal is taking this matter quite seriously. The court has also fixed a date, the 14th of April, for case management, where the court will outline timelines and requirements in order to have an expedited appeal. So that is what is happening in relation to that appeal, in relation to that petition that would have been dismissed. That is petition number 99. The other petition, petition number 88, which was the first filed in time, is coming up for hearing before the Chief Justice on the 7th of April. That petition deals with the legitimacy and the constitutional validity of Order 60. Order 60 was the document, the order that was crafted by the Elections Commission to facilitate the recount. And that is what we're challenging, because we maintain that such a document, such an order could not be used in relation to doing the recount and making a declaration of the presidency and the outcome and the results of the election based on that.
You know, Mr. Forde, in reading the State Department's report, 2020 report on human rights, the first couple paragraphs and even the last paragraph or second to last paragraph that deals with the installed individual, I get the impression from the beginning that, and again, that's my impression, my opinion, that the State Department or members are actually acknowledging that something wasn't right in terms of with the way in which Irfaan Ally and the PPP were actually installed. I get that impression. And what is your take, sir?
I agree with you, Mark. The United States has always been a friend to Guyana, and we expect them to continue to do so or to be so. Over the period leading up to the elections and after, we saw the United States take a very strange position, which led many of us to believe that the then government of the United States was quite determined to have some form of regime change. I believe that a more mature and reflective analysis of the circumstances which led to the PPP coming into government and the installation of Mr. Ally as the president is what we're seeing recorded and featured in the report.
And that's exactly what's in the report. Now, let's go back to the petition 999. How optimistic are you about this? Because I've noticed Anil Nandalal, who seems to be busy every day, all sorts of issues he's an expert on these days, but he is actually pleading with the court, the appellate court, to not even entertain it. How do you respond to that?
Well, Mark, I'll respond to it in this way. First, it is quite odd for a government who's very confident that they were legitimately elected, who's sure that everything was complied with according to the law, to be fighting so hard to have an election petition which would reveal and determine that issue once and for all, dismissed and tossed out of the court. So I understand his antics. They are totally afraid of both election petitions, both the first one that is currently still in the court before the Chief Justice and the appeal. I am confident, Mark, that we will prevail in the Court of Appeal in relation to this appeal. I'm also confident that the objections being raised by Mr. Nandalal will be rejected by the court.
Rejected by the court. Are you confident that either way this is reaching to the CCJ?
Oh, it's definitely meeting to the CCJ, one way or the other. One way or the other. I could assure you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
No, I'm saying it's definitely going all the way.
Definitely going all the way. What time frame, if you can? I know you probably wouldn't give an exact time frame, but when is all of this going to be over, you think?
I can't give a serious.
By the end of this year, mid?
I believe towards the end of this year.
Towards the end of this year. All right, you heard it from Senior Counsel, Member of Parliament, the Honorable Roysdale Forde, who is here with us. And thank God we're not having any technical difficulties. Mr. Forde, what's happening in the country, man? Crime on the increase and certain kind of crimes. We're seeing it again. We're seeing the return of these crime that reminiscent of the dark days. You know of the dark days. What is your take on the situation in the country right now?
Mark, where we are right now, unfortunately, is where we have always been under PPP government. There's the creation of a state of total lawlessness, total disregard for rules, disregard for human life. And you know, Mark, the PPP came to power this time around, and exactly the same thing started happening all over again. You see, Mark, the PPP would have communicated, the government would have communicated to its supporters and to the Guyanese people as a whole that lawlessness is the order of the day. Now, I'm going to cite two examples, Mark. First, the killing of the Henry boys very early into this government's illegal term, up to now, has not been properly dealt with, has not been properly investigated. Harris Singh's murder has not been properly investigated and properly dealt with. Mark, the greatest and the most significant health challenge that Guyana would have faced for the past century, the COVID crisis, the government is completely at sea, communicating the impression to the Guyanese people that it is okay to go out, engage in social contact. So the entire community, the entire country, Mark, is coming to the conclusion that there's no regard for any law and order, no regard for any seriousness. So the killing that took place a few days ago, Mark, I see it as a resurgence, a reemergence of the lifestyle of lawlessness. And it's exactly what we experienced for many, many years, Mark, under the PPPC. We both know of the persecutions. We both know of the killings. The country knows of the killings of hundreds of young boys, of young men, which would have occurred under the PPPC. And I am worried and concerned that this may be the beginning or continuation of that trend.
Lots of people, Mr. Forde, lots of people are concerned about that. What are some of the sentiments expressed on the ground when you guys as parliamentarian representatives are out there meeting with folks from your constituency or even outside of your constituency? How concerned are they, sir?
Mark, people are very concerned. People are very concerned about crime. They're very concerned about the economy. People are very concerned that the cost of living is increasing, that they are still earning insufficient, that the government seems not to care about the crisis of COVID and how it's affecting their families, how it's affecting small businesses. And I believe that the persons that we have interacted, even supporters of the PPP, are quite concerned that it is life as usual, that the promises made by the PPP for better governance, to give them an opportunity to govern in a better way, to be equitable, that is just simply not happening. And the people are very dissatisfied.
And I can understand that because cost of living has gone sky high, gone way up. Gasoline price gone up as well. Lots of people are feeling the squeeze, man. Too many people throughout the country, whether they're APNU-AFC supporters, whether they're PPP supporters, or whether there's small fries parties one or two supporters, all of them are feeling the squeeze. I don't know. But the other thing that I want to touch on, and we still have a few minutes more with you here, it has to do with the way things are being done in Parliament. You have the Public Accounts Committee. What exactly is going on with that? Another form of dictatorship? What exactly the PPP has to hide, man?
Mark, it's apart from not wanting to have scrutiny or meaningful scrutiny over the accounts and over the expenditure of the PPP, it is another form of what the PPP is doing across the board, trying to occupy all the political space and to engage in a dictatorial tendency. Mark, from time immemorial, in any parliament that is patterned off the British tradition and the British Parliament, the Public Accounts Committee is an important committee, and it is always in control or in charge of by a member of the main opposition. What the PPP wants to do, Mark, is tantamount to destroying that tradition and that convention, because we believe that ultimately what they want to do is to use their majority in Parliament, to use their majority in the Public Accounts Committee to have either a member of the opposition that they believe that they could have control over. And let us put it out there, the only other member of the opposition that they would seem to have some affinity to would be Mr. Lennox Schumann. Mr. Lennox Schumann, Mark, would have voted even against the interests of the people that he says that he would support, or who supports him in the assembly, just to support the position of the PPP. So we believe that this is all part of a grand plan to install Lennox Schumann as the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. He will not be able to function. I don't want to get into too many issues on that and provide too much information. It should not be out there at this stage. But certainly I wish to assure you, Mark, that the APNU AFC members of Parliament will not allow that to happen.
All right, and that's the same position they took with this guy Schumann when they appointed him as Deputy Speaker.
Exactly, Mark. Exactly.
Interesting. I want to ask you a question, and I don't want a lot of the listeners to hear what exactly I'm about to ask you. What is your take, Mr. Forde, with people saying that you guys in the opposition need to do more? Mind you, I know a lot of you guys are out there busy every single day. But how do you answer up to that constructive criticism that more needs to be done?
Mark, is a very fair criticism. And we obviously need to do more. The expectation of our supporters and what we actually can deliver is significant. But we're doing significant work in the communities. There's always a challenge of resources and the availability of resources. But I do agree that it is a perception, it is a reality also. Because all the work that is out there to be done, we have not done all. We have not done sufficient, but we're working continuously, Mark.
And daily, 24/7, you guys are just there working, doing your job. I have heard from the chairman of Region 10. I want you to listen to just about a minute of what he has to say as to what the PPP is doing in Linden.
Hi, good evening, Mark, and thank you for having me on your program. You know, we continue to face hardship here in Region 10. We have seen the propaganda machine up here in the region. Our people, predominantly of Afro-Guyanese descent, are being targeted. You have seen the policies of this government not being in the best interest of our people. They continue to discriminate against Afro-Guyanese and supporters of the coalition. They have returned to the old policy of starving APNU AFC stronghold of resources and discriminating against communities and people who do not support them. And this is having a negative impact on our society, on the people here in the region. We would see
negative impact on society and people in the region. Your take on what the PPP is doing, not only in that region, but across the country, brainwashing people.
Mark, what is happening in Region 10 is happening across the country, Mark. The continuous acts of racism, of almost economic sabotage, the removal and stifling of persons, denying them opportunities, equality, or lack of equality, I should say, is the order of the day in the country, Mark, in every aspect of life. You know, the PPP and their supporters, and especially, for example, Mr. Nandalal, the AG, when I speak or when other persons speak who are of African Guyanese descent, and we speak up, we are accused of being racist. We are accused of pushing a racist agenda. But Mark, I'm not racist, and we're not being racist. This is the reality of the policies that are being implemented by the PPPC across the board. Mark, they continue to use the local government system, the regional system, to bypass the regional system, to provide their supporters with resources, but at the level of the regional council, virtually starve it of resources. The regional executive officers in those regions listen to the minister and to the PPP government as a whole. Funding, award of contracts at the regional level is not fair and equitable. So what the regional chairman is saying there, Mark, is not only is it true, but it's pervasive throughout the length and breadth of the country.
Last evening, Mr. Mahipal spoke about shortage of drugs, and doctors are either walking, looking for new employment, or they're being fired. What's going on with the health sector?
Mark, what is going on in the health sector is exactly what is happening even in the health sector's response to COVID. It is not focused, there's no plan, and the PPP continue to bungle the health sector. Mr. Mahipal was speaking about what is happening in Region 3. Many health personnel, they're no longer employed, they have resigned, they have lost any interest of working, the morale of the nurses are low. We know what is happening in Region 10 in relation to the strike. The government up to now have not formally provided any response, any meaningful response in relation to that issue. In relation to the drug shortage, billions of dollars worth of drugs are being disposed of by the government. They're saying that it is expired drugs. No meaningful process have been put in place by the Minister of Health. I don't know exactly what they're doing.
They're wasting a lot of time. Mr. Member of Parliament, I know you've had a very, very busy day, packed day, but I'm glad we've had no technical glitches so far. What about folks out there? I've heard that even sugar workers are crying out. Sugar workers are complaining, they're striking and all these things. Are you guys, I know some of your MPs are out there also embracing the sugar workers.
Yes, Mark, we are out there. We're going to be meeting with every aspect of the Guyanese population. Some people would say the people are traditional supporters of the PPP, but we are very concerned about their complaints. The sugar industry is not going to be going anywhere, Mark. The government is going to try to prop up the sugar industry, but at the same time, they're not going to provide the workers with any meaningful improvement and development in their lives. So that is what this strike is about. They're demanding increased wages. The government is going to be starting back the sugar factories. As they say, I don't see it happening. And the workers have a right to protest and to object and to demand higher wages if you're going to be calling them out and asking them to work. So we're monitoring that also, Mark.
All right, monitoring it indeed. Mr. Forde, we see the police force going after, and even the judiciary, going after the ordinary folks, the DJs and so forth, charging them, taking them before the courts, sentencing them on probation to go and clean up Durban Park and clean up the streets. But we're not seeing that with these big businessmen who have been charged recently. But instead, we're hearing these owners of hotels and casinos. Instead, we're hearing that the DPP is yet to advise on what to charge them. The scale of justice.
Mark, that is one of the problems of the PPP administration: inequality and the protected friends and family of the PPP. The administration of justice, from the point of view of the DPP, we in the opposition, we have tremendous concern about how the DPP would make decisions. So we see this simply as another manifestation of what has been happening across the board in relation to decisions of the DPP. In relation to the Guyana Police Force, the PPP is in office, and these are the things that happen when they're in office. Mark, you know, the Guyanese people need to come to grips with the facts of what can be associated with the PPP.
Of course, lots of things indeed. I saw a press conference. I listened to a press conference earlier with the leader of the opposition and other members of parliament. I give them a 9 for that. Perfect, well timing, and so forth. People want to see more of that. But before we go, Mr. MP, what is your closing remarks? The thousands of people who are listening, whether in Guyana, outside of Guyana, in terms of restoring hope, because this catfish regime, they've got to go, and they will be going very soon. But what is your closing message to your support base and those who want to come over and join you guys?
Mark, my closing message would be this. First, I would like them to understand that we are currently working and we're currently mobilizing. We cannot do it alone. We would ask the members of the public and even our supporters in the diaspora to support us, to work with us to ensure that this government is removed. I want even the supporters of the PPP to understand and to reflect on and to engage in an objective analysis and comparison between the period of APNU AFC from 2015 to 2020 and what is currently happening here, and to really ask themselves whether life is better now. If they engage in that honest analysis, Mark, they will conclude that life has gone worse, it is not better, and we would ask them to work with us to ensure that the APNU FC returns to office, that equality and justice returns to the public life and to the administration's outlook and operation under an APNU AFC administration.
I know I've said your closing remarks, but I give you the chance to speak on anything that you wanted to touch on that I didn't ask you.
Mark, one of the things that I'm very concerned about going forward is the lack of fair access to all the people of Guyana to economic resources. Mark, the economic structure of this country, in my opinion, needs to be level, need to provide every person with equal access to economic resources, equal access to banking resources, to engage in businesses, to become entrepreneurs, so that each person could make an independent decision as to what they want to do for their families. Mark, the current government is doing nothing to ensure there's a level playing field across the board for people to have an opportunity to improve their lives. So I'm quite concerned that the budget continue to offer nothing to the Guyanese people in terms of making themselves independent and more resourceful.
All right, well said, Mr. Forde. Continue to do the good job that you guys are doing there on the ground, and keep yourself safe, and your families too, your family members as well. Ensure you guys are safe, man. Good seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. You too.
All right, Mr. Roysdale Forde there for us. Attorney-at-law, Senior Counsel, Roysdale Forde. Remember him, right? When he was appointed Senior Counsel, there was another guy who was jealous of him and sued because he didn't want Roysdale Forde to be a senior counsel. Lo and behold, as soon as that individual was appointed senior counselship, he grabbed it. These guys, a bunch of hypocrites. All right, hey, guess what we're going to do? Now that our attorney, our guests, they're gone, it's time for us to do a little bit of misbehaving, right? Here's what I think of the U.S. State Department's and Human Rights Report for 2020. This is what I think they did. This is exactly what I think they did to the PPPC, the installed regime, the installed president. This is what the 2020 Human Rights Reports did to them. Oops, yep, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. They don't like it. Why do you think that not a single one of the pro-PPP, and they have a lot of them, pro-PPP mouthpieces, whether they are newscast on online or whatever it is, not a single one of those entities, none of them carried the State Department's report. Not a single one of them. But look, the new Secretary of State, right? What a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much, sir. The report is balanced, well balanced. And not only that, too, he started off by saying early yesterday morning, there was a press conference in his office, and he started off by saying, I am honored, and that is the Secretary of State saying that I am honored to release the 45th annual country reports on human rights practices and to reaffirm, now listen to this, to reaffirm the United States commitment to placing human rights at the center of our foreign policy, at the center of our foreign policy. He went on to say, the cause of human rights, freedom, and dignity is close to the American heart. As President Biden emphasized, and I quote, we must start with diplomacy rooted in America's most cherished democratic values, defending freedom, championing opportunity, upholding universal rights, respecting the rule of law, etc., etc., etc. What a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it. And this explains why the installed president, Irfaan Ally, who possibly is watching this program, since he's watching, we don't discriminate. We say good evening to everybody who's watching this program. We're glad that you're watching. Absolutely. We're glad that you're watching. What else we're going to do? I want to give you guys my closing remarks before I go. We'll take another commercial break because we've got to pay some bills, right? Without that, we wouldn't have any program here at all. We'll be right back.
Need the service of a JP? Then call the Alistair Collins firm on 649-6410. They are located on Lamaha Street between Cap and Waterloo in the K-Line Mall. Call them today and experience service unlike any other.
This is Guyana, beautiful Guyana.
I know them guys get vexed when they hear the word installed, right? They don't want to hear that at all. But that's what they are. Installed. That is what he is. Installed. Installed. Gosh, they are vexed. Now, look, this is another quick ad. Give this guy a call, man. If you have electrical problems, whatever it is, you're in the Queens area, Brooklyn, Bronx, wherever, Long Island, Staten Island. Maybe he'll drive over to New Jersey as well. He's an electrician, licensed electrician. Imran, give Imran a call, man. He do everything for you. Every single thing. Fix whatever it is, electrical stuff. 347-744-7445. Give Imran a call. Tell him you heard it right here on Straight Up. A good guy. Support his business. And for those of you who have businesses that you want to support too, give me a call. Give us a call. You have our number. We don't charge a lot. Give us a call. Just throw something in the bucket and we're ready to go with you. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about quickly before I go is that if we are seeing the curtains coming down for the catfish regime. It is coming down. And some of you guys have your constructive criticisms and so forth. Yes, it's okay, it's welcome. But I believe that it is time that we focus on the bigger fish in the house. But if every day we believe that we're gonna joke these guys in the opposition, joke them here, joke them there, joke them there, joke them there, I don't know. It wouldn't be victory that way at all. Sometimes some of them do need a little joking, right? But constant joking sometimes demoralizes them, and we've got to be very careful. A lot of them are working hard. Maybe some of them are not working as hard as they should, but a lot of them are working very, very hard. So give them that support and get the installed people out of office, and not just the installed people. Some people are asking for this, right?
The government, don't shout at me, sir. You with your one sexy subject, don't shout at me. Mr. Speaker, the government, don't shout at me, sir. You with your one sexy subject, don't shout at me. Mr. Speaker.
All right, now that they're actually installed, right? How do you guys feel when they come into your communities? They come to talk to you. They come to brainwash you. Look, it reminds me of what Jack Dave said back then.
Across Guyana, when the ministers of Granger or Nagamutu come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal. Free up the country.
You know, our listeners, we have to satisfy you guys, man. You guys wouldn't leave unless we play that donkey there for you guys. But we'll be back tomorrow, same place, same time. I want to thank Mr. Midas, Samuel Midas, the reigning Soca monarch, for gracing us with this time. Also, we want to thank the Member of Parliament, Mr. Roysdale Forde, Senior Counsel. Thank you so much, sir, for your time as well. And you guys continue the good work. Guyana needs a lot of help, lots and lots of help. We see what is happening. It's not the best. Things are not good at all, but it is what it is for now. Keep fighting, keep standing up for your rights, and keep doing what is right, what is just for the country. All right. So what do we leave you guys with this evening? This is quite appropriate, especially coming on the heels of the U.S. State Department report. Good evening to Ms. Claudette Singh. Good evening to all of you guys. God bless you. So long.
6 of them. Oh, that's another 6. That is huge. Back-to-back 6s and hands will be clasped. What a time to keep the dream alive. the ground, but Fielder underneath and taken. The dream is diminished for Carl.
Fishing, wing, wing, wing. Bim, bam, 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 boy. Biddy, bim, bim. After 5 years was big excitement in Guyana. Tickets sold out, not a seat left in the stadium. March 2nd was the date. Green team and red team them prepare. Big cricket match, and the winner will take it all. A lot of foreign people bet on the red boys team, but green team went with a local lineup instead. Red team watched them with a smile, like the slyest crocodile. They had a secret weapon to help them beat the opposition. They had them jumping in the crease, falling on their knees, saying, Lord of mercy, walk across this retreat, holding tight, never slack, hiding the ball behind your back. So much guile and trickery, Ambrosing got nothing punchy. When she swing the ball, you guarantee wickets will fall. No batsman could stand up when Claudette swing. Claudette swing, she bright like a star and fly like a fox. Claudette swing, don't come down the wicket or you will get stumped. She love to bowl a slower ball, chopping you in front or you get caught. Green team was shocked when they see how Claudette swing. Bim bam bam biddy biddy. Fishing wing wing wing. Well, you know, franchise cricket is a big, big thing. Lots of money, you can buy all the top players. From all over the place they want to come. Green team even object to some, telling them the flight's all full and they're not welcome. Top players from around the world, red team got money to splurge. They had famous players A, B, C, and E. Plus Mia behind the stumps, and Ralphie, he at mid-on. Red team not easy at all. Plus Claudette swinging the ball. Head coach wants Pompeo, for the red team. The man of honesty, decency, integrity. He captained the green. He thought the swing bowler was a part of his team. He had picked her out from the lineup, later to find out she had switched from green. But once you're in battle, you can't let down your fans and team. Just make up your mind to deal with Claudette swing. Claudette swing, she know all the tricks, so it's easy to get caught. Claudette swing, don't come down the wicket or you will get stumped. She love to bowl a wrong and ball, tie you in a knot, your wicket will fall. Charanda spin, and to face Claudette swing. Dang, 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 ding, dong. Fishing, wing, wing, wing. On the day of the match, everything set, colors flying high. Early morning, if you see the crowd at the stadium, man, you couldn't complain. Everybody got a smile on their face, and the blowing if you see green fans in the place. Red team fans, them in taking left. It was a sight I'll never forget. Everybody anticipating a fair day's play. But early in the game, you hear about tampering, and some red team fans come with fake tickets to get entry to the cricket. win the toss, and they batted first. They put up a real good score. Green team had a work cut out for sure. Red batsmen did well at 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 9. And green team batsmen they shine at 10, 8, 7, and 4. Everybody jump up saying green looks certain for the win. But I keep saying to them, look out for Claudette swing. Claudette swing. She toss up the head, had them in confusion. Claudette swing. Top bowler make you lose when you think you win. Everybody thought the match was fair, but then so many things became unfair. Oh, what a thing, because of Claudette swing. Claudette. Claudette. Dang, 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 dang. Well, look at story. Look how the cricket match end up. With the cheating, the lying, the bribing, hiding and seeking. Some saying play over the match. Number 4 get out to a bumble catch. They say red team cheat and the match they want to snatch. We need to review the game. Become the scores, but captain say the fans of the green team, they didn't agree. But the captain went ahead, Funko and pretty Mackie bed. And when the tabulation came back, he ended up losing the cricket match. If you see the scene, Claudette, the whole world against the green, Claudette. If you want to win a cricket match, get a swing ball up on your team. They couldn't read Claudette, they couldn't read the bowling at all. Meanwhile, the blow brigade shouting, front, 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 while half the team and fans protesting. The captain throwing the towel, yes, he gave up because of Claudette swing. Claudette swing, she is the best in the world when it comes to swing bowling. Claudette swing, she know how to fly, so she keep the bowling tight. A, B, C, and E around the back. Throughout the match, that was the trap. Green catered a spin, but they couldn't take Claudette swing.